It's good to be back. Invincible is living proof that superhero fatigue is just code for tired of mediocrity. And I, for one, am thankful that this show is here to raise the bar, even doing that with just a PNG. Invincible is here, no weird hiatuses, and I'll hate this child forever for what he took from me.
Seriously?
No, not really, but for real. These 3 episodes of Invincible, like, they are hitting, doing all the things Invincible has always done well, shoring up some of the things that it kinda doesn't, and reminding us why it sucks to be a normie in a world filled with superheroes. That and the moral grayness that comes with such a world. Mark versus Cecil is heating up, and wherever you land on the ethical debate, you gotta admit that this show is doing it well. So let's get into my thoughts and my breakdown of these first 3 episodes. I am Sarcastic Chorus, and hold on, I wanna try something. Like this video. Did the button glow? Apparently YouTube has rigged the button to glow whenever a YouTuber says, like this video. And I'm very curious to see how I can abuse this later. But screw it, let's talk about... Now to be clear up top, this video will have spoilers. I think at this point, y'all should know if you like this show or not, and you should know that this show, it hits. It's all just a matter of personal taste if it works for you or not. If it doesn't, understandable. Thankfully, this show is my particular cup of tea, and Invincible is off to a strong start. Mostly. So I'm gonna spoil the shit out of everything that happens. This is your one chance to dip out. Okay, ready, cool. Mark and Eve are together. Meh. With that out of the way, we can talk about the real good stuff in this season, and we'll go by episode to episode as that's just the easiest way to talk about all of it. Episode 1 of Invincible Season 3 is really good. Bringing us up to speed on Mark's training arc, we find out that the kid didn't drop out of college for nothing, having upped his game and broken his personal records for physical stats, becoming faster, stronger, tougher, all under the watchful eye of Cecil. And after all the beatings he's taken from Viltrumites, Mark now has a chance. I mean, that's kind of it. He is still gonna get his butt kicked. It's Mark. What else do you expect? Now, the main theme of this episode is change, which I love, as this show has always done such a great job at world building, taking the time to show how superhuman beings would work in the real world. From heroes trying to save people much softer and weaker than them, to the catastrophic consequences these incidents have on those that survive. Invincible may resemble a Saturday morning cartoon in many ways, but every character in it feels like they have a rich interpersonal world. This isn't just about the dudes who find tights, and the ones that do, yeah, they still have a lot going on. They change, they grow, they do not remain static villains of the week or just the mom or girlfriend. Mark may have been on a training arc, but Doc Causmic was too, and he nearly wiped out most of the superheroes on the planet. That's right, this dude nearly got everyone, which is a great way to show just how nothing in this world is truly stagnant. And of course, it's making Mark's life so much harder. Mark, in the last year, has found that his dad was a murderer, made peace with him, and then just killed a guy, unintentionally. Bro is looking for some stability, and it's only really here that his idea of what it means to be good is truly challenged, hence him butting heads and later freaking out at White Dick Fury. As Cecil says, this man is willing to do anything and everything if it means keeping the world safe, leading to his personal philosophy of control and cynicism clashing with Mark's idealism. Hence him blowing up when he finds out that Cecil has been using former villains to aid him. Though really he should only be mad about one of those villains, as Darkwing 2 he's clearly not well. He seems very reformable while DNA Sinclair was experimenting on college students. They're both bad, but like one is clearly worse than the others. Now I'm gonna talk about this more in depth later, but for right here, I love how this dilemma is handled, as it feels so juicy, as it makes you really consider both sides where they're coming from, and it doesn't take the easy way out just saying, oh, control is bad, even while it still shows that yes, this is not a good thing what Cecil is doing. Even though you very much understand why he's doing it, as Mark is now okay with killing people. Mark accidentally killing Angstrom is something that haunts him. He didn't mean to kill that dude, and after a season of trying not to be like his dad, he fell into the same sticky habit. This is part of the reason that Mark is so insistent on being moral, because if he doesn't check himself, literally no one else will, or they'll approve. But him preaching the moral high ground starts to ring just a wee bit hollow when he's caked in other people's blood, showing a willingness to kill his enemies when he's backed into a corner that he just didn't have before. When Rex's life was in danger, Mark wasn't willing to take the chance and chose violence. He may not like it, he may have even given himself a freebie since since these are clones, but Mark is willing to kill, and that is a massive departure from the usually idealistic hero we are so used to. Also, while we're in the neighborhood, shout out to Rexplode. Like, this dude has grown so much from season 1 from just being an asshat to now one of my favorite characters here. I like how he's grown into being a better person in general, and now we still get a bit of the douchiness, but now it's more lovable instead of grating. Him leading the rage quit was perfect, and he and Ray are definitely gonna hook up, and you know what? I ship it. Kinda wish I could say the same about Debbie and what's-his-face. Like, it's not him. I like that Debbie's being given a chance to move on with her life, but I've never seen a man more doomed to die or get broken up with than... If he and Debbie are still together by season 4, I'd eat my own shoe. Overall, I think this episode is a really strong start for the season. Mark and Cecil are at odds, had a fun one-off that leads into the bigger ideas of the series. Character drama is hitting, but if I were to give one note, I kinda wish that the premiere stopped here. Let me explain. I like money. But more seriously, I think this cliffhanger is extremely effective, leaves you wondering like where the story can go from here. Mark and Cecil are about to throw hands. We don't know what's gonna happen, and then we immediately get the answer, they move past it. It's still there, the drama, but compared to the cliffhanger in episode 3, episode 1 just does a lot more to like leave me wanting more. Just the bland secret conspiracy just isn't doing it for me. It'll be good, just if I'm picking an ending to get people hyped, I would have picked the one at the start and given us more episodes to watch over a longer period of time that I could then talk about and monetize. But besides that, I actually think it's really important for this show that we have a really good hook to the series, as when Invincible first started, the idea of Omni-Man being this villain, that slow reveal, us inching closer to the secret finally getting out, was just the most compelling part of season 1. And season 2 just never was able to capture that same underlying tension that really brought all these episodes together. It seemed like we were about to put our foot on the gas, but then we de-escalated, and it was still good, but the threat of a Viltrumite coming is just, it's gonna happen when it's gonna happen. It doesn't create the same engaging mystery. And I hate to say this and ignore all the great character stuff that's happening, but to speak to my monkey brain, unless a Viltrumite is raging on screen, I'm sitting just a little too comfortable. We've been shown that any villain can gag us, but having seen where the power ceiling actually is for this world, going up against bugs feels like an obstacle, not a threat. Mark finding the Reaniman was pretty cool though. Episode 2 is probably my favorite of these first 3 episodes. Cecil's backstory, it is so good, and Cecil is very close to being my favorite character right now, as he is so goddamn interesting every time he's on screen. As we really learn here what makes him tick, how he became the cold, calculating bastard that he is now, with his early attempts to have a code still ending with him doing whatever it takes to save the Earth. This is what he's become. He sees himself in Mark, and Mark may end up becoming something similar. Now, to get into the whole ethical debate here, I think they're both right and wrong, which is the best messed up part of all this. Mark is angry at Cecil's clear willingness to cross moral lines to achieve his goals, that the people Sinclair hurt are still living with the effects of his actions. Cecil has given this man more resources to do the same work, leaving all of Mark's actions to feel meaningless in comparison, as why would you do all this heroics, why would you turn in the bad guy if the government is then just going to empower them to do more of the same? Not to mention lying and not telling anyone else about it. Cecil is willing to betray the trust of anyone in the name of security and the potential threats he sees around him. He may be able to act friendly, and I do think part of him is like, he is not like the full cold-hearted bastard that we know that he is. He may care about someone, but he still is willing to put them in the ground if it means the greater good. This man put a bomb/control bolt in Mark's head, and yeah, that is messed up. That said, you fully understand why he does the things that he does, and what's worse, by the end of this episode, Cecil comes off as fairly reasonable. And this is low-key my favorite line of the entire episode, as it is a perfect dig at Mark. Is stronger than he has ever been. He is willing to kill people right now. Combine that with his immaturity and his belief that he knows better than his elders, it creates a cocktail that, from the outside, given past incidences, Looking for ways to stop a Viltrumite in case they go rogue is just a very valid fear to have. We understand that Mark's name Invincible means his spirit. He'll probably never break and turn full evil. His father couldn't do it, so I don't think anyone else has a chance. If you're in this world and don't know this is a story, fearing Mark flipping, it is something to be concerned about, at least on some level. Mark in the last 3 months broke the ceiling for what they thought he could do, making their fear of him becoming another Omni-Man, and for Cecil, who sees everyone from a crisis management perspective, you understand why he does the things that he does. There is something darkly compelling about us watching a young Cecil give his body to save others, be angry at the few deaths that did occur, only for him to later become the man he was originally rebelling against. However, I think the key here is seeing just how Cecil's cynicism creates the outcomes he claims to want to avoid. Mark ends up wiping the floor with his first line of defense. He's able to convince the Guardians to choose him over their boss, showing that Cecil's cold matter-of-fact approach leads to others rightfully assuming the worst in him, as yeah, he would strangle puppies if he thought he had to. And with that in mind, so yeah, of course Mark is gonna turn against him. His last father figure just turned out to be a monster. He's not about to let it happen again. But just as importantly, we see how Mark's idealism, that thing that let him stand up to his father, won him the loyalty of all of his friends. It also drives him to have blind spots that he doesn't want to admit to. Cecil is trying to control and manage him. He's using criminals to do his dirty work, but Mark's belief that other people can be better isn't being extended to them. As he's in such a raw place right now, he killed Angstrom. He wants to believe in a world of right and wrong, and not submit to the gray morality he's been preached at for the last 2 seasons. So he draws hard lines with Cecil being the one to talk about redemption, while Mark just wants to throw the book at Darkwing. Mark is a good guy. Cecil did him dirty and treats him like a threat, so he starts acting like one. But the same strong feelings of love that helped him sway Omni-Man are also what have him lashing out and recoiling in horror at letting these villains be good guys, as he probably feels like he needs to double down on being good after just what he's done. If Cecil had believed in Mark, they may have had a chance to talk things out rather than having a blowout. But belief means little when results are all that matter, so while you sympathize with Mark, you understand Cecil, which is why I love this situation and conflict so much. Mark is out here galled at what he sees when nearly everyone else in the room is like, "How did you not know?" This all ties back to the increasingly blurry ethics of the Invincible world. The question of what is too far and who deserves a second chance versus being punished. This all builds to a fascinating conversation, one that Mark is probably gonna have to start dabbling even more into, as if he's willing to take a life, that's one thing. Now he has to wonder how his actions will affect those around him, like a certain superpowered toddler. Yeah, ideals are all well and good, but then you have a tween that can hit like a Mack truck. Suddenly sentiments start sounding a little hollow, don't you think? I'm usually burnt out on the whole idealism versus cynicism debates in media for many reasons, but I think this one really works, though I do hope we don't see a complete ends justify the means message by the end of it. Though to talk about other things, the breakup for the Guardians was kinda funny. The Immortal is over here caked up talking shit about Mark and how he just pulled a literal his dad caking the HQ in blood. But he's willing to fully embrace Darkwing 2 after spending most of Season 2 being wary of Mark, showing that there's a fine line here for him where he's willing to give someone more trust if he thinks he can take him. Similar to Cecil, he views the other Guardians as children, immature, and that they'll just come back after they all decide to quit this shit. With honestly, that being kind of valid that they don't want to keep working for a control freak. Though, out of everyone here that I expected to leave, Robot was by far the most surprising. As for a brief moment, Robot wasn't giving future villain vibes, only for them to immediately turn around and say, "No, there's a fucked up reason for me doing this." I figured he'd be the one to most agree with Cecil, and somehow his real answer was worse. Also, Samson, you really need to shut up, as you are giving some of the biggest death flags I have ever heard. Dude, you might as well pick a fight with the Thundercat when you're saying shit like this. Also, of other things to mention, in this episode, the Gobbler came back. And yes, I did get PTSD. Tubicate was also here talking a lot of shit for someone who let everyone think she was dead. Also, yes, Eve and Mark are officially dating. Wahoo! Okay, like honestly, they are cute, but this to me was just expected. I'm just waiting for the story to make me actually care about them being together, as I am so burnt out from Will They Won't They's that this was always the transparent endgame couple, and they're finally together. Congrats! You did exactly what you clearly intended to do. Let's see them do something besides understanding the grind and having post-mission talks. I am a petty bastard and I will not be reasonable on this one thing. Make that two things. The joy I felt when the Mauler showed up can't be understated. These goobers are the secret MVPs of this show. Sorry, Omni-Man and Alan, these two. Every scene with them is a delight. And after that whole King Mauler incident, where one of them finally realized that they are fully a clone, no way to contest it, they seemed like they were in a better place. They were treating each other more like brothers and siblings than arguing original versus clone, when clearly they are both clones at this point. And then Oliver took them from me. I'm sure they had another clone lying around or someone will clone them, but still, this kid fucked up. And I haven't talked too much about Oliver, and honestly, I think he's fine. It's an interesting prospect to see Mark deal with his kid brother as he develops superpowers, his underdeveloped brain not understanding the nuances of the world and how killing a villain isn't as simple as he thinks it is. It's an interesting problem for Mark to be dealing with. I'm just not fully gripped by Oliver as a person yet. Him wanting to call himself Kid Omni-Man is funny as shit, like anything else would be better than Kid Murderer, though he does live up to his father's name. Also, Mark's new costume is kinda mid. It works, better reflect Mark's darker persona-ish. It just doesn't pop like the other outfit, which was perfectly crafted to look great even when Mark was coated in his own blood. Lou is okay, but it's an alt costume I would never personally pick if this were a fighting game. Though if we're really talking about episode 3, the opening for this episode is fantastic, showing us the lives of two C-tier supervillains. We learn that these two aren't just some guys who woke up one day and decided to rob a bank, but it was desperation that really drove them to this point. We see them running for their lives after a failed robbery, them just returning to their shitty apartment and their unpaid bills, making us understand why they did what they did. They may be bad guys, but they don't seem to be bad people, with them attempting to do something less risky by working a 9 to 5, only for their rent to go up. They couldn't find other work because they're criminals and they're probably getting rejected, and they just ended up homeless, with that making the idea of risking it all in some bank robbery just so tempting till they actually did it and everything went wrong. This is a great sequence that really hammers home all the great things about Invincible and the sincere way it handles these characters. It would be so easy to write off these no-names as just a joke, but Invincible goes the extra mile to show us their lives and the potential they have to change, only for them to not get that opportunity to live better lives, hammering home the idea of why killing villains is bad even if they're seemingly as basic as the Maulers. While it may seem like the simple solution that they have it coming, the heroes often don't know the lives of people they're punching lead, so killing them might just cut short someone who could have been something more, or just someone who needed another chance. Some sick, twisted part of me almost wish that these two were the ones that got gutted by Oliver, as while I love the Maulers, having not Doc Ock and the Mold Man die after seeing just their whole backstory would have been devastating. But I'm willing to see what this show is cooking for everyone later down the road. Glad to have Titan back. Amber also made appearance as the show tries to beat the "we didn't just get rid of her" allegations. I'm not super gripped by the mystery of the conspiracy dude that was watching Mark, though I've had to guess he's probably related to Cecil, as that one dude we saw tip off Paul with a ring that looked suspiciously similar to the drone. Overall, I am very excited to see where Invincible Season 3 takes us, as last season, very good. But not gonna lie, I spent most of it waiting for them to finally put their foot on the gas after all the setup. But this season looks very promising, and I'm hoping the action keeps looking as solid as it has. Like to level with you all, the show apparently had a rough production cycle, and while I mostly think it's serviceable, not the best, but it works well enough for what it is, I do think watching the adaptation of Sakamoto Days has reminded me that not every show needs to be Jujutsu Kaisen or Demon Slayer's level of crazy good. If the story still hits, it hits. I don't fully come to Invincible for the fight, so I can live with what it's giving so long as the animation errors aren't obvious. Though yes, I do wish Sakamoto Days had way better animation. The manga is so good. Let me know what you all thought down below. Been a while since I posted. Vacation and rewrites had me take a longer break than expected, so comments and shares would be much appreciated to remind the algorithm that I am still alive. Thank y'all for watching. See you next week. Also, watch Sakamoto Days, watch the new Spider-Man, watch Creatures Commandos. I am begging you, all of these shows are fire.